system confers special obligations and responsibility on us as a country. And it is very important that Americans understand that we need to do everything possible to sustain confidence in our ability to keep inflation low and stable over time and to make sure we're getting our fiscal house in order. That's a really important thing to confidence generally. We take that very seriously, nobody more than me.
So what have you done specifically to safeguard the dollar's decline?
Well, I think, Marie, if you look generally, I don't talk about developments in exchange markets, but I generally don't do that. But I think you look at what's happened over the last year, you've seen really a lot of confidence in the U.S. financial, a lot of the confidence in the U.S. economy. When the crisis was at its peak, when people were most concerned about the risk of collapse and deflation, what happened then? The world wanted to be in treasuries, in the safest, most liquid markets, and you saw the dollar rise when people were most concerned about the future of the world. And that is a very important thing. It's not something we can count on. It's something we have to make sure that we understand and we continue to foster. And again, we're going to do that.
Common theme that seems to be happening over and over again. Here we are at Dow 10,000. Got J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs reporting, great numbers once again, paying record bonuses apparently, a number of firms once again, and yet 10% of the country is unemployed. How does that happen? Some people are saying out there, here we go again. Did we get snookered again? Have we learned anything?
We're not going to let this financial system go back to where it was. And we're not going to let the practices reemerge that caused this crisis. And that's why the President and the Congress are working so hard to put in place financial reforms that will reduce the risk of excessive leverage, risk-taking in the future. That's a very, very important thing for us to do. And it's something the financial system has a huge interest in happening. They are all disadvantaged. The best-run firms were disadvantaged by the worst-run, by the worst practices across the system. So the financial community as a whole has a huge interest in putting in place a more stable framework with better protections for the industry as a whole. And I believe, ultimately, we're going to get this, and we're going to get a strong set of protections in place. That's very important. But just to go to where you began, you cannot have unemployment come down without growth. You will not have growth without credit being available. It's the oxygen for economies. And we have made remarkable progress in bringing more stability to the system, bringing the cost of credit down, in raising confidence in asset values. You're seeing stabilization in house prices, interest rates lower, and that is a necessary condition for starting to have the kind of growth that's going to bring down unemployment. Cannot happen, is not possible without a more stable financial system. And if people don't understand, they should just remember what it was like in the second half of the last year, where you saw a huge amount of trauma in the financial system cause enormous damage to businesses and families, not just in the United States, but around the world.
Because we're still dealing today with too big to fail, aren't we?
Well, at the center of any reform process is to make sure that institutions are not living with the expectation that the taxpayer is going to come in and save them from their mistakes. And that's why these reforms are so important. And the critical objection to reform, apart from what we're trying to do on the consumer side, which is really very important, is to make sure we have a system in which we can let firms fail with less damage, without the taxpayer being on the hook. And we're going to do that.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Tim Geitner talking